Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Nerd Soup. I am Reuben, here to review Severance, Season 2, Episode 2, Goodbye, Mrs. Selvig. All by myself today, but Aaron will be back for our spoiler discussion, where we will get more in depth with the episode and some of the theories we've been reading online. Obviously, this show inspires a lot of discussion, and I've been seeing a lot of the discourse on Reddit, TikTok, all the different social medias. Well, I'm not actually on all those social medias, but people sent me stuff, so thank you, Mom. Another good episode, and we suspected that this episode would take place entirely outside of the Lumen offices, catching up with the Outies, Mark, Helly, Irving, and Dylan, and how they're feeling after that Season 1 finale, the reactions to being told that their innies escaped. But before I get into this episode, I want to let you guys know that you can listen to this wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever it is. And if you're craving more Nerd Soup, you can join our Patreon page, where we upload reviews of shows, movies, or just general discussions on life and everything in between. And you can also follow us on social medias, at Nerd Soup, at Beau Soup, and I'll shout out Aaron, at Nerd Soup Monkey. Go give him a follow, because he needs the dopamine. He needs those dopamine notifications. I mean, so do I, but we just need a wellness check for the whole team. I'm sure you guys could use one too. All right, let's get into the review. My biggest takeaway from this episode in the end is that it really could have been released as a 2-episode premiere. I don't know if it is the first time where we've had one episode entirely inside of Lumen and then another episode outside. I know in Season 1 they did a lot of, the majority of the episode would take place in Lumen, or the majority would take place outside, or it was more split down the middle. But this was a cool way to do it, because it really is getting the perspective of the two sides of the personalities that have been created by the severance procedure for these characters, to allow the viewer to experience severance as the characters do, where you're only going to recollect what happened on the outside if you're Mark Scout, and vice versa for Mark S. And I thought this episode, the performances are always great episode by episode, but in this episode in particular, the facial acting was so good. Starting with Adam Scott, making that transition from Mark S to Mark Scout. The way he's able to just suddenly change his face and his mannerisms to where you instantly know who you're with.
So this is you now?
Yeah.
And some of the changes that they mentioned in Season 1, the voice becomes a bit harsher, the demeanor as well, where he's not as patient with his family, and especially with that final line. The way they're playing with that is also very interesting, that because of Devon's baby going missing, they assume that Mark was just talking about the baby, that he got really excited there in the end. But it's Devon who's not able to let it go throughout the episode, and I'll touch on that more a bit later. But yeah, just those subtle changes that these actors are able to make, like Helly versus Helena. It feels like a totally different person. When she's Helly R, she's a force of nature. She's going to scratch and claw. She's going to do everything in her power to be free. She knows exactly what she wants.
Do I look like I'm fucking around right now?
No, you do not.
Whereas Helena, it's really hard to tell who she is, because she is wearing this mask, and that's something that Britt Lauer talked about at the end of the episode, that she's trying to be what her family wants her to be. She's playing a small yet important role in a bigger story, so she's way more methodical, more corporate, more put together. There's a poker face that she's wearing at all times, and that confrontation that she has with her father, once again, the facial acting, where he only says one thing to her.
Fetid moppet.
But it's just that seething anger, like he's ready to explode. The disappointment and the contempt he has for his daughter. So just from the two scenes that they've shared together at the end of Season 1 and now in Episode 2, Season 2, you know everything you need to know about their relationship. It's Logan Roy and Shiv. But in this case, it's even more fucked up. Because I think Logan Roy would really appreciate Helly. At the very least, she's a serious person. You also see this subtle change in character for Milchick. They also talked about this at the end of the episode. When he's inside of Lumen, he's obviously totally in control. And even inside of Lumen, you see the good cop, bad cop personalities come out, where he does butter them up and pulls out the rug. But outside of Lumen, he has to be the caretaker. He has to do everything in his power to fire Mark's team without giving away what truly happened. It was just so funny seeing him go from house to house, first when he's delivering the message that they've been fired, and then later with the gift basket featuring a pineapple. Man, they really love the pineapple. That's their go-to fruit at Lumen. I'm sure there's some deeper meaning there, but just waiting for my mom to send me the pineapple Reddit theory. It's also just hysterical that they have this grown-ass man doing all these silly tasks, trying to win back your employees by giving them a pineapple. But that actor, Tremel Tillman, has been tremendous throughout these 2 seasons. And I think in this episode, you do see some of his best acting, because when he's in these tense moments, like when he's sitting down with Mark and his family, and he's trying to gather more information without giving anything away, it's a very delicate balancing act. And I really love the shot when Dylan G is walking out of the office and he's got the ice pack after he was tackled by Milchick. And it was really funny the way they explained that away. You got into a violent confrontation and you were the aggressor. Meanwhile, he was fucking tackled. But all the lights go off in the Lumen office, but you still see Milchick, illuminated by his white shirt. Even when the lights go off, when everybody clocks out, Milchick is still working. He's around the clock trying to clean up this mess. And they talk about how he got the promotion. Now he's running the severed floor. And obviously, Mrs. Cobell is very upset about that. She's dedicated her entire life to Severance, and now she's been kicked to the curb. It reminded me of in Star Trek when they always try to give Picard and Kirk promotions. They're like, oh, you're overqualified to be a captain. Why are you still working the Enterprise doing this grunt work? Go live a cushy life as an admiral.
Don't let them promote you. Don't let them transfer you. Don't let them do anything that takes you off the bridge of that ship, because while you're there, you can make a difference.
And that's what they're trying to do here with Cobell, giving her this bullshit made-up position that she's going to be, that she's going to run the Severance Advisory Council, which, you know, feels like a made-up bullshit job you give your son-in-law just so he could be on the paybook. And it's interesting. She confronts Helena and says, you fear me. You fear what I can do because of how capable I am. And they clearly value Cobell for her talents. You know, you could make the case that in season 1, it was her determination alone that kept things from falling apart completely. But they do clearly fear her, not only what she can do, but possibly what she knows, because she has been a part of Lumen, assumedly for her entire life, being raised in the cult of Kier. So we did mention this on our episode 1 review and our season 1 review, that the tension between Mrs. Cobell and the board has a lot of potential, pitting them against each other as enemies. There was even a point in this episode where I thought Cobell was going to side with Mark, when they have that confrontation at the end of the episode, when they call her, Cobelvig, coined by Rickon.
Perhaps Cobelvig would be a helpful nomenclature?
I loved how Devin used Cobelvig in just casual conversation as well. But I thought at the end of the episode, she was going to give Mark some information as to what exactly is going on between Mark and Lumen and Gemma. But yeah, she just drives off. She has her typical outburst. It's so funny how she can switch from incredibly calm to just absolutely manic in a moment's notice. And it's terrifying every time. But with Cobell, she still remains such a mystery, and now they've set her off on her own path. So what does she have up her sleeve? And which way is she going to go? Because I think there is a potential for her to be, you know, a character who realizes how she's been in this cult for such a long time, and how in her own right she isn't free because her entire existence is dedicated to serving Kier. So maybe she feels betrayed by Lumen, and that inspires her to help the Innies. Or it could be, you know, the complete opposite direction, where she feels she's more important than anybody at Lumen, more important than the board, and that she's the only person for the job. You know, they keep calling her a crazy woman. They want to throw her under the bus, blame her for everything that happened in season 1, but maybe pushing her out is what actually creates that monster. And she does some real damage to where you don't have to make up a story, but it's the consequences of pushing away someone who knows so much and is extremely capable of doing real damage.
There's much damage to control.
And that confrontation between Cobell and Helena was great. It's just a, you know, really tense moment. I think the build up to it, when you're seeing Helena walk through the Lumen offices, I don't think there's a show on television that looks better than Severance. Just absolutely beautiful. And the way that it was framed, to where you have Cobell and Helena really close, and then off to the side is Mr. Drummond, played by Olafur Olafsson. He has maybe, 3 or 4 lines this episode. Maybe the most terrifying character who has appeared on the show so far. Just the perfect actor for an enforcer. An incredible voice. When he first spoke,
I need to find out who they talk to. Promptly.
and what I found interesting is that he speaks for the board there in the end when they're talking to Milchick about how they're going to handle Mark S. and bringing back his colleagues. But he's the one who says that everyone is going to come back, including Helly. So it's not Helly who makes that decision, it's Mr. Drummond, which made me also think, because everybody believes in episode 1 of season 2, that was Helena, that wasn't Helly R. So now I'm starting to think maybe Helena made the decision on her own to go in as Helena instead of Helly R, because she keeps replaying that clip of her and Mark when they have that kiss. And they mentioned after the episode that for Helena, that's something new. That's something that she doesn't necessarily have on the outside world. So she's watching this tape of her innie, and she's seeing someone who's more comfortable in her skin, more free, willing to steal a kiss from her colleague. And it seems like Helena was really moved by that and really touched by the intimacy, something that she simply doesn't have. So maybe it was Helena's own decision to want to experience what life is like on the inside, which is a fascinating concept, that the innies are so desperate to escape, to experience the outside world. But within Lumen, and in the case of Helena, she's actually experiencing what it's like to live a normal life, to fall in love, to have friends, to have purpose, to not have somebody breathing down your neck telling you what to do. I mean, I guess they do have that inside of Lumen, but even when she accomplishes the numbers bullshit in season 1, there's a satisfaction and a fulfillment that she feels that maybe Helena has never felt in her entire life, because she's always been under the thumb of her family. You know, she's a dutiful soldier, but what does that do for her on a personal level? Especially when it's so mysterious. Like when they talk about Cold Harbor, whatever the fuck they're doing to Mark's wife, to Gemma, you know, I can't imagine that Helena feels so passionate about that project. So maybe it's just a case of she's not in there to spy on the innies, but she's in there to experience what life is like inside of Lumen, because that's better than her outside life, which is just so, like, really fucked up. We've seen what they've gone through. They literally are tortured. They're prisoners. And for Helena, she's like, damn, that's better than what I got going on outside. But circling back to Milchick trying to get Mark to come back to work, that's what we were all wondering watching episode 1, is how do they get them to come back? It's a really fucked up type of punishment. Essentially, you are killing them. And for the Audis, they have no idea why. They have been fired, they have been dismissed, and they're obviously not going to be given the truth. And then the way he plays on Mark's morals, where he says, what your innie did was commendable. It was brave. And the exact line is, I'd hate to reward his courage with non-existence. So it puts the idea in Mark's head that this could be a form of murder, and making Mark feel guilty about it. And then also, what a manipulative piece of shit to be playing on his grief, saying that inside of Lumen, Mark S. is happy, he's funny, he fell in love. Eventually, you're going to feel that too, which is total bullshit, because we know, as Petey said in season 1, Mark S. has just as many issues as Mark Scout. They're just being repressed. So yeah, Milchick, I mean, the soft-spokenness, the friendly smile, and to be that emotionally manipulative is so despicable. And I mentioned in our last review that there's a touch of humanity to Milchick this time around because of the stress of now running the severed floor. But then in the next episode, they remind you that he's willing to get down and dirty in the most despicable of ways. But I did find it really funny when Rickon complimented his helmet.
That is a magnificent helmet.
I also felt really bad for Dylan in this episode when he's first fired by Milchick and he's like, what am I going to tell my wife? Another thing that I didn't really think about is it is their job and it does impact their Audie's life and in Dylan's case, obviously his family. So he has to go out and interview for another job at a door company, and I thought that conversation back and forth was really funny. And also Dylan saying that if he could be any door, he would be a pocket door. And I thought that was really revealing about Dylan's character, that there's an insecurity there. I'm the one who holds the door open, and then I sort of get tucked away. So maybe there's going to be feelings of insignificance, that within the group he's not as important, maybe he's being used, or maybe that's a narrative that Milchick and Lumen is going to push against Dylan in order to divide and conquer. And then there's also the discrimination aspect, where Dylan isn't hired because he reveals that he's severed. And it is such a controversial, hot-button issue that just revealing you've been severed is going to limit your job opportunities. It was something I wasn't expecting, but definitely interesting. They've done a good job adding different perspectives that I really haven't thought of. For Dylan, it's almost like he's trapped. If he can't get a job somewhere else because he's been severed, in a way that makes you a prisoner to Lumen, that no matter what we do, we can fire you and then offer you a pineapple gift basket to come on back, and you really have no choice because you have no other options. So I found that to be interesting. And with Irving's character, we have that scene when he's on the payphone and he says, "I want you to know that my innie got the message." So Irving, I wouldn't be surprised if he's also working with the woman from season 1 that was helping out Petey. There's way more to his character. At this point, I definitely think he worked at Lumen prior to when we saw him in season 1. I think that's obvious by the season 1 finale. But it's not only now that he's working on his own, but it seems to be that he's working with other people. And then we get the moment where Bert drives up to see him. That suggests that what happened at the end of season 1 had an impact on Bert, that he's not just going to drop it and move on, which is obviously, the right direction for the show to go, because Christopher Walken as this character has been absolutely tremendous, and the chemistry between the two actors is great. So I imagine that's going to inspire Bert to dig a little deeper as well, get some more information out of Irving, sit down and have a conversation between their two outies. And just knowing who Bert was inside of Lumen, I imagine he is going to be very sympathetic and understanding towards Irving, that he's going to want to hear what he has to say, that he's just not some madman. Or maybe I could be totally wrong. Bert on the outside is all about Lumen, and he's working for the bad guys, and he's just going to use the relationship that he has with Irving inside of Lumen to manipulate Irving on the outside. This show just gives you so much to think about. And it's also so funny. Like Mark W., when he's fired and he's cursing everybody out.
3 days of work. I broke a fucking lease in Grand Rapids.
So just the change in personality between his innie and his outie, where he seems like your typical, very respectable old man. He could be a bit grumpy, a bit cranky. And on the outside, he pulls no punches whatsoever. He's cursing everybody out. He's like, "I'm going to fucking sue you." He's kind of out of pocket. It was also really upsetting watching that scene between Mark and Devin, because in season 1, their relationship is one of the only points of relief in Mark's life. Devin is someone he feels very comfortable around, comfortable opening up to her. They have that great humor between them where they can make these dark jokes and never take it personally. It's Devin who can't let go of what Mark said at the end of season 1, that she's alive. And the back and forth they have when she says, "Devin was my family too," and then Mark is talking about all the things that, he had to experience after she passed away. It just sucks to see them butting heads this way. And it's because they both want the same thing. They want closure, but with but it's just so fucked up to think that you could see that you can identify your wife's dead body. You can go through a wake and a funeral and the stages of grief, and then be told that she's still alive. It is so philosophically unsettling. So you can totally understand why Mark is hesitating with this information. It breaks his entire world. And I guess Devin being a bit more removed from it, she's able to get past how fucked up it is in order to find an answer. And then you have Drummond listening in on their conversation. I know this motherfucker's going to do something bad. He's going to do something real bad to somebody I love. He kind of reminds me of Thor from God of War. At first, I thought maybe it was the same voice actor, but it's not. He could have been Thor. He straight up kind of looks like him, and he's got the voice. We also speculated on our episode 1 review that Mark came back to Lumen because he wants to finish what his innie started, or he wants to allow his innie the chance to finish what he started. But no, it's more so Milchick playing on that manipulation. I think a part of it is wanting to figure out what happened to Gemma, and we'll probably see more of that after the final scene of this episode. Mrs. Cobell, she kind of gives it away there. The poker face comes down a bit, and Mark can instantly tell that she knows something. But yeah, no, he goes back to work because he believes that eventually he's going to feel the same way his Innie does, that he's going to feel at peace in his life, that he'll be able to get over the grief that he's been carrying for years now. So I found that to be interesting, that it wasn't so much in solidarity with his Innie, but it was more for selfish reasons. Once again, the same reason he got severed in the first place. I definitely think that's going to change in episode 3. And I'm really excited to get an episode featuring both the outside world and the inside world to see how they begin to coalesce. Not just with the memories, but the motivations. Because maybe the memories continue to be severed, but they get to a point where both the outie and the Innie, without even communicating with each other, are on the same page because of what they're learning inside and outside of Lumen, coming to the same conclusions, or very similar conclusions. And a couple of more points I wanted to make. I'm not convinced that Dylan's family is real. We obviously saw the son. That could have been just a setup. Maybe Lumen is that smart. They're playing real 4D chess with him. This is how we keep him inside. We feed him this information that he's got a family. Maybe Gretchen, he only talks to her on the phone. We don't know. She could be just sitting right next to Helena and Mr. Drummond when she's having that conversation. I think that's something to keep an eye on, that they're not actually showing us Dylan's family, except for the son. But like I said, that could be faked. And I think Lumen is willing to go that far in order to trick one of their employees to continue manipulating him. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. And also with Helena, I do think that was an unsanctioned spy mission, or not even a spy mission. She just, she's obviously got a lot of connections within Lumen. So she set it up so when she returns, it's going to be her, Helena, not Heliar. And it's not so much she's there to gather information, but she wants to experience what it's like to be an actual person, which is to me, that's even more interesting than she's there to spy on them, because that's something that you don't even expect. You're watching this show and it's just like, yo, they need to do everything in their power to get the fuck out of this situation. And then you have Helena looking from the outside in, like, yo, this is kind of cool. I want to kiss Mark S. He's kind of cute. But yeah, overall, to me, this was just such a good it's just such a good show, man. I'm like itching to watch the next episode. And I imagine that's for a lot of people who binged it after it came out because, it's been such a long wait. People had a long time to catch up. And now you're just conditioned to having the next episode play right after. And they keep teasing us where they have episode 3 up, but you can't watch it. And that episode is titled Who is Alive? What a title, right? God, this shit is intense, man. And like I mentioned, we will be coming back for a spoiler discussion. That will be me and Aaron, and we'll get more in depth on the episode and like I said, some theories, what people are discussing and talking about, because I think there's going to be new theories and new ideas after this episode. And that's what's so genius about the show, is because even with this episode, it's just filling in the pieces, but it's also giving us so much more to contemplate. And when a show can operate in that territory while still being funny and enjoyable to watch, there's truly no better way to tell a story on television week to week. It just gets the people excited. Are you listening, Netflix? Are you listening, Hulu? Stop with the binge model. It's stupid.